Hi there, my name's Halen Powers. I'm in Dr. Brown's artificial insemination class, and today I'll be talking about the advantages and disadvantages of AI in a hobby herd. Okay, so I'll start off by defining what exactly is a hobby herd. That's not something that's used a lot in lingo, but around here in East Texas, it's a very common thing because there's not very many commercial operations around here, like a feedlot or something of that nature. Hobby herds generally are 30 cattle or less. It doesn't really influence the supply chain as far as what's actually sent to be processed and turned into like steak or any other sort of product like that. Um, Generally, they generate a very small amount of cash when compared to, say, a feedlot or something of that nature. And it's generally just used as, like the name says, a hobby. For an example of a hobby herd, I would use myself as an example of that. Back in high school, I used to show calves. Ended up keeping all of my cows, and I've just had them in the pasture ever since. As of right now, I have about 10 breeding age cows per year. It ranges anywhere from 5 to 8,000 a year, depending on if I break them for show, if I have a good calf crop, and also the market, of course. It's not enough to fully sustain me as far as like living expenses, right now school expenses, things of that nature. It's just enough to justify owning them. It's a good financial boost, if you will, which is what most hobby herd owners use them for. Either that or quote unquote yard ornaments. For me, I either halter break them and sell them as show calves to high schoolers, or just take them to the Nacogdoches Livestock Exchange just like everybody else does. So, when talking about artificial insemination in conjunction with hobby herds, it's only useful in just a couple of situations. One of those situations being when you can't really justify or afford to pay for a new bull. You can use AI to kind of fill in that gap so you don't lose a calf crop for a whole year or 2 years or however long it may be. It's also if you want to inseminate certain cows to have potential show calves. If you want to use a well-known bull's sperm, depending on the price per straw. So as far as advantages of AI on a hobby herd goes, like I mentioned just a second ago, one of the main advantages of it is using it as a filler way to have a calf crop. Say you lose your bull or you have to sell him because he's getting old and you can't afford to buy another bull, you can use AI as a filler in between those years to make sure that you have a calf crop and income coming from those calves. Another way you can use it is to improve your herd by introducing superior genetics through AI. It can be used to raise potential show calves if needed. Say you have kids and you don't want to go out and buy an expensive show calf, you can try to raise them there uh, using AI and the calves and cattle that you already have there. Another big advantage that I've seen with it is you can use it to synchronize your calving season to where you're not having to make 5, 6 trips per year to sell those winning age calves, and just improves your operation as a whole as far as how smoothly it runs. So the disadvantages of AI on a hobby herd, um, it's still useful, but for someone just starting out with AI or trying to do AI themselves, it can be quite expensive. So starting off, you have your straw cost, getting a nitrogen tank, potential technicians if you don't know how to do it yourself, and if you need to modify your facilities to have a head gate or anything that would be needed to constrain those calves to where you can AI them, it can be expensive for somebody that doesn't have any of that stuff already, which most hobby farmers wouldn't. Um, Another disadvantage of it is it's not as effective as natural servicing by a bull. Sometimes, depending on who does the insemination, it can show a decreased rate in calving. And for hobby farmers, that's very important to have as many calves as you can every year, so you can have as much income as you can every year. And using AI can sometimes alter those rates. So here's just kind of a loose financial breakdown as far as the cost associated with natural servicing and artificial insemination. So for an average type bull, not one that's been super successful, the cost is anywhere from $2,000 to $5,000. That depends on their age, the breed, and how well they've been evaluated as being sound for breeding. A straw of semen can range anywhere from $20 to $300, depending on what bull you select. So, for example, say you have 10 cows to AI, and you choose a bull that costs $100 per straw. That's $1,000 per year on breeding. And if you were to choose a $3,000 bull that services those same 10 cattle for 6 years, if you break that down, the cost is about $500 a year, which is excluding feed and like vet visits and any other expenses that may come along with it. So on average, for someone with a smaller herd, AI is going to be not as viable of an option unless you're using it as a filler between those years that you don't have a bull. Therefore, it's not the most affordable option, but it's mainly just advantageous when you just don't have a bull.